Hey, what's going on everyone? Here's my review of the Master Grade High New Gundam version Katoki. I don't normally buy kits from anime I haven't seen, or in this case don't actually have an anime at all, but I consider the High New Gundam to be a bit of an exception since I collect Amuro Ray suits. Now I'll be reviewing this Master Grade in 4 categories: the build, the appearance, the articulation, and the gimmicks. I'll give each a score from 1 to 5, and at the end I'll tally everything up for an average score. Hopefully this review will help you decide if this kit is right for you. Part 1. The build. The build for this kit was like a toned down New Gundam version Katoki. It seems to use a lot of the same inner frame and general engineering. Thankfully though, this guy doesn't have that retcon psycho frame, so this build is relatively straightforward. The instructions lay everything out pretty well, and aside from a few sections on the legs and the back skirts, I really didn't have any issues with the initial snap build. There are a lot of tiny circles and vents though, so you've really got to focus on what you're doing with this kit. The major issue with this build comes in the water slide decals on the fin funnels. See, the tops of the funnels come in all white, and this faded purple is actually a combination of 3 water slide decals. They're really hard to work with and to get looking good. Honestly, they aren't too durable either. If you handle these fin funnels too much, the decals will just tear or straight up slide right off. As for the little touch-ups I like to add, well, there isn't a lot. The only real detailing I did aside from panel lining was adding black paint to the inside of all the vents. There are vents hidden in just about every hatch on this guy, and they all look better with some black paint. I suppose you could add some silver to some of the pistons in the legs, and maybe add some color to the machine gun in the right arm. But honestly, there isn't too much to do in terms of detailing. He looks pretty great just out of the box. A word of warning though, on the waist section there is this little notch that prevents the chest from sitting flat. At first I thought it was a mistake, but it's actually a way of offsetting the weight of the backpack. It props the chest forward, preventing it from slumping backwards. The side skirts also do a good job of concealing it, so I really wouldn't mess with it. The build for this kit was great. I'd recommend it for a more intermediate builder. It's not too complicated and doesn't require too much detailing, but the small parts and the water slide decals make it difficult for beginners. I'd give the build for this kit a 4.5 out of 5. Part 2. The appearance. This kit looks amazing. It's everything I would want from a High New Gundam. I've always had this distinction in my mind of the New Gundam being sleek and the High New Gundam being bulky, and this kit doesn't disappoint. The colors are great, and the overall simplicity was exactly what I was looking for. I love how minimalistic the panel lines are. You get a ton of decals for this kit, all of which are water slide. I could see them taking a lot more time than the actual snap build. Most of them are just caution signs, but you do get quite a lot of Amuro's emblems, which is always a nice touch. Like always, I really didn't use any decals except for a few emblems here or there, just to add character. The appearance of this kit is amazing. I couldn't imagine a High New Gundam looking any better than this. I'll give the appearance for this kit a perfect score of 5 out of 5. Part 3. The articulation. Starting at the bottom, the toes can move up and down a little, but nothing crazy. You get great mobility out of the ankle. You're really only limited by the ankle guards themselves. You get somewhere between a 135 and a 180 degree bend for the legs. It's really solid for something with such bulky legs. It's got the modern Master Grade hips, so it can do all the kicks, splits, and spins you want. The skirts move just as you would expect, no real issues here. There are a couple of joints in the chest, but because of the backpack and that notch in the waist I mentioned earlier, you really don't get any movement. I suppose you could spin it a little though. As usual, the cockpit does open up. The shoulder armor is on a hinge, so you can flip them up. The arms are pretty standard. They've got a 360 degree spin for the upper arm and a decent 135 for the elbow. This kit has emotion manipulators too. The hands can do literally any pose you want. The downside though is that they tend to not be very sturdy. The ball joint in the wrist specifically is a little weak. They do have pegs though. The head is on a double ball joint. This section moves up and down too, but because of the bulk of the head, you really can't move it around too much. The wings can spin pretty well, but not much else. That might actually be for the best though, since they might be pretty heavy. The fin funnels are made up of 2 hinges, so you get movement comparable to a ball joint. Unfortunately, they can kind of slump over time though. This big fin and these fuel tanks on the back can also move up and down. This is one of those kits that has a ton of articulation, and yet you don't really want to be posing him too often. He just feels very finicky, and I could easily see myself snapping something off by mistake. Of course, if you have a specific pose in mind, I can almost guarantee he'll be able to do it. It's just you may not want to ever change him from that pose. I'll give the articulation for this kit a 4.5 out of 5. Part 4, the gimmicks. There's a lot to get through here, so I'll try to run through them as quickly as possible. First up, you get the standard beam rifle. It looks great, but it can be a little heavy, and it might cause the wrist to slump a little bit. Next, you get 2 beam sabers and 3 handles. You can store 2 of the handles in the backpack and 1 in the left forearm. The beam sabers themselves come in this amazing bright blue. This may be my favorite color of beam saber. You can also attach the sabers themselves to the forearm for this kind of effect. You get a bazooka that can attach to the backpack. Thankfully, it's a pretty strong connection, so it doesn't just pop off like it does with the new Gundam version Katoki. Last, for the basic arsenal, you get this massive shield. I like how it's a more simplified design than the new Gundam version Katoki. It really matches the more minimalistic design used for this kit. Like the new Gundam version Katoki, you get a dedicated stand. It plugs into the backpack and seems to hold up pretty well. The downside is that the stand is really basic. You only get 2 positions for the arm, and it doesn't raise up. There is also no standard action base connector, so if you want to get this guy aerial, you have no choice but to use this specific stand. On the bright side, you can take the arm off the stand and use it as a support beam. This is an amazing idea, and I wish more back-heavy kits would come with this. Now for the main attraction, the fin funnels. Once you pop them out, they can be pretty flimsy. They do have a tendency to close up on you too, since there's nothing keeping them open. You can attach them to the action base using these clear arms. You honestly don't get as much movement as you would think. Honestly, these are kind of a disappointment, so I just keep them on the backpack at all times. Since this is a version Katoki kit, there's a lot of interesting gimmicks in the suit itself. The right forearm can open up to reveal a machine gun. It comes in all white, so I doubt you're going to get much use out of it unless you paint it a nice silver or something. You can put an LED into the chest too, and make the eyes light up. But honestly, it requires taking off the entire backpack just to turn it off and on, so I'm not going to bother. The suit itself has a ton of openable hatches. If you like painting your inner frames, then I'm sure this is going to be a really standout feature for you. I'm pretty sure that wraps up the gimmicks for this guy. There's a lot to dig into, and almost all of it works as you would expect. However, the fin funnels are a bit of a letdown, from the water slide decals to the inability to stay open to the lackluster posing options on the stand. The rest of the gimmicks hold up though. I'll give the gimmicks for this kit a 4.5 out of 5. Finally, the verdict. Time to tally everything up for an average score. The build was a 4.5 out of 5. It really improves on the new Gundam version Katoki build, mainly by removing that psycho frame. The water slides for the fin funnels kinda suck though. The appearance was a 5 out of 5. It's everything a high new Gundam should be, and I love the minimalistic take on this suit. The articulation was a 4.5 out of 5. It has great mobility, it just doesn't feel too sturdy. Lastly, the gimmicks get yet another 4.5 out of 5. There's a lot to dig into, and most of it works, but the fin funnels and the dedicated stand are a bit of a letdown. Tallying all that up and dividing, you get an average score of 4.625 out of 5, but I'd round that to a 4.6. In terms of a percentage, it receives a 92.5%. That sounds about right to me. This kit is amazing. It's a really good build, it looks great, it's posable, and it has a ton of gimmicks. But as with all version Katokis, this kit may fly a little too close to the sun. Katoki seems to be trying to advance Gunpla with each of his releases, and this one is no different. It succeeds in much of what it attempts, but there's always a little bit that falls flat and prevents it from being perfect. Now there's a lot to this kit, and I'm sure I skipped over a few things. Feel free to leave a comment, and I'll answer any questions I can. Thanks for watching.